we spoke to some of the cops, the bike cops, after the event last Tuesday night, the unfortunate event. And I think many of them are fed up. They've clearly been given their marching orders to stand there. And they did stand there as Denise and I was called out by name as I tried to enter Casa Loma. People screaming and taunting, calling us baby killers, inhuman, death to the Jews kind of thing. And it was very unsettling. But I think these guys have been given their marching orders. And you know what's going to happen, Dave? I hope it doesn't, but something terrible is going to happen. And then they'll all be wringing their hands, clutching their pearls, saying, oh my God, like it happened at Boulder. The mayor ignored the Jewish community. I was reading last night their constant concerns about anti-Semitism, rising anti-Semitism. Does it sound very familiar?
Casa Loma, located in Midtown Toronto, is a top tourist attraction. Sometimes it is also a venue for fundraisers. Sometimes people get married there. It's usually a very beautiful and tranquil place in Hogtown, but not last Tuesday. That's because Casa Loma was a venue that attracted the pro-Hamas crowd. And suddenly the grounds of Casa Loma, shockers, well, they were filled with chants of Jew hatred. As for the police, well, Operation Normal, which is to say they did absolutely nothing. With more on this most recent disgrace is Sue-Ann Levy. She writes for Juno News, and I'm so happy to have her here today. Sue-Ann, thank you so much for joining me. And bring me back to last Tuesday. What was it that attracted the rank and file members of that group I call the Hamasholes?
Well, I think they probably knew, first of all, it was in a residential neighborhood, and I think they probably knew that security or sensed that security would not be tight. And they also, it was a fundraiser and it was expensive to attend. So why not go after Jews who have a few bucks and harass them? Mostly elderly, by the way, mostly elderly. Denise and I were among the youngest there.
And
my
so,
wife, Denise.
What was the castle hosting that night that drew the Jew haters to it in the first place?
Well, it was ironically the Abraham Global Peace Initiative, which has been started as an adjunct to the Simon Wiesenthal Center and fights, get this, anti-Semitism. And here we had it playing out right in front of us as we tried to enter the facility.
And Sue-Ann, anti-Semitism, it is a thing. We've seen that in the streets of Toronto and in other Western cities for the last 19 months. I know in Toronto, the Jewish population is less than 4% of the overall population. But in terms of hate crimes, anti-Jew hatred is more than 40%. What's going on here? I think part of the problem is the lack of leadership by our politicians, and almost zero law enforcement when it comes to those breaking the criminal code, such as chanting genocide, which is what these people do every weekend, which is contrary to Section 319. Why is this being tolerated, Sue-Ann?
Well, it stems from the top, Dave. You and I both know it. We have a mayor who I always knew she'd be a train wreck as a mayor. I've known her for 25 years, Olivia Chow. But I think she's anti-Semitic. I think that she goes out of her way to avoid Jewish events. She's slow to respond when things do happen. And she's been seen almost weekly wearing her headscarf. I call them shmatas. Some people have taken exception to that. Wearing a headscarf and cosplaying, attending various Muslim events. And, I think that she and many of I call them the Hamas caucus at City Hall, have given a clear message to the police to keep their hands off. And we also have a very, very weak police chief. A guy who blocked me on Twitter because he didn't like being called weak, Myron Demkiw. So it stems from the top, but I also think social media, I think that they have been enabled by social media, by our weak politicians, and there are no consequences for their behavior.
I think you're right. And I think Chief Myron Demkiw, Sue-Ann, I think he's the worst police chief in Toronto history. And given that Bill Blair used to be a police chief, that's saying something. And by the way, let's just throw to a brief clip from last Sunday. I bumped into you at the Walk with Israel, but before the walk kicked off, I had the pleasure, such as it was, to confront Chief Demkiw. And wow, I was surprised. Sue-Ann, I think he carries around a taser and a gun, but he ran away from me like a scared little pussycat. Check this out. Hey, good morning, Chief Demkiw. Chief, can you tell me why peaceful counter-demonstrators and independent media have been arrested by your members these last 19 months? Excuse me, Chief Demkiw, why are you tolerating anti-Semitism in our streets? Chief Demkiw, why are you a coward? Why do you prevent us from going to press conferences that you put on? You are a coward. What a coward. Yeah, so the point is he wouldn't comment on the double standard. He wouldn't say anything about why lawlessness is running wild. But to your original point, I think you're correct. I think the politicians have done the math, the electoral math. They realize that there are 5 times as many Muslims as Jews in Canada. And hey, it's just business, baby. And by the way, I'm not saying all Muslims subscribe to this garbage. They don't. But I think this is the mindset driving politicians like Olivia Chow, who are likely telling the likes of Chief Demkiw, hands off when it comes to the pro-Hamas set.
Yeah, and then don't forget her deputy mayor, Ozma Malik, I exposed her in 2014, so that's like 11 years ago, that she had marched in a anti-Israel protest celebrating Hezbollah. So, and she's a wicked person. And I think Olivia, she's whispering in Olivia's ear about the hands-off attitude kind of thing. But, this is like an accident waiting to happen. Dave, look what happened in Boulder, Colorado.
Yes.
And the poor, one a Holocaust survivor, the poor Jews, innocent Jews, being burned by an illegal immigrant who was in and had overstayed his welcome. And, social media is so toxic now that, that who's to say we wouldn't have a copycat doing the exact same thing here in Toronto or Montreal. And we and the Jewish community do not feel protected whatsoever.
You're so right, Sue-Ann. That Boulder, Colorado story is so disturbing. Here's an illegal immigrant from Egypt chanting free, free Palestine as he tries to incinerate Jews. And the Boulder, Colorado police chief going out of his way. Let's not jump to terrorism right now. I mean, given the facts of the matter, Sue-Ann, I would argue that it looks very terroristry, if that's a word, and it probably isn't.
FBI is already calling it a targeted terror attack. Would you also refer to it as a terror attack?
So I've been in contact with our local FBI multiple times. We are in contact with them here. We are not calling it a terror attack at this point. Again, it's way too early to speculate motive. I know there's a lot out there on social media, but I ask people just to give us a little bit of patience while we work through a really complex scene. A lot of witnesses were here. We've taken them to another location to debrief them and interview them. As we do that, I think the picture will become more clear. But it would be irresponsible for me to speculate on motive this early on. We're only a couple hours into this thing.
Going back to the Walk with Israel, where I met you face to face, there was a point where I discovered, and we can show the visual here, an individual with the pro-Hamas people toting around a hand grenade. I personally think it's a replica hand grenade, but who knows? I said to the police officers, officers, aren't you going to inspect that hand grenade? And they ignored me completely, Sue-Ann. And this guy was within throwing distance of thousands of marchers for the state of Israel. Why the hell did they take such a hands-off approach? I can tell you, if you went to the airport with such a thing, you'd probably be tackled by security. I don't get it, Sue-Ann. Sir, is that a real grenade or a toy grenade? Do you understand English? Officer, do we know if that's a real grenade or a toy grenade? You're not concerned about that? Well, this is amazing, folks. This man is holding what appears to be a grenade. I don't know if it's real or fake. And the police aren't interested. And it's funny, just 8 days ago, Avery Armstrong and I, my camera woman, we were at the corner of Lawrence and Midland, and we saw somebody with a handgun in his waistband. Well, what did we do? We called 911, and the police responded. They got on it right away, as well they should. Now, if a handgun or a replica handgun, whatever it was, I don't think they caught the guy yet. If that's unacceptable, why is there a grenade in full view of these officers? Like, this is shocking.
Well, it's funny because I think Denise and I, Denise being my wife, we spoke to some of the cops, the bike cops, after the event last Tuesday night, the unfortunate event. And I think many of them are fed up. They've clearly been given their marching orders to stand there. And they did stand there as Denise and I was called out by name as I tried to enter Casa Loma. People screaming and taunting, calling us baby killers, inhuman, death to the Jews kind of thing. And it was very unsettling. But I think these guys have been given their marching orders. And you know what's going to happen, Dave? I hope it doesn't, but something terrible is going to happen. And then they'll all be wringing their hands, clutching their pearls, saying, oh my God, like it happened at Boulder. The mayor ignored the Jewish community. I was reading last night, their constant concerns about anti-Semitism, rising anti-Semitism. Does it sound very familiar? That's happening in Toronto, a much bigger city. I just am really concerned. I was thinking about it last night. Should we start carrying some protective, some mace with us? Do I have to do that? Do I have to carry something to protect myself now? Of course, if I stuck a knife or I brandished a knife, I'd end up arrested so quickly. It's unbelievable, the double standard here in the city.
Oh, Sue-Ann, you don't have to convince me. I was arrested 5 times last year simply for practicing journalism in the public square. But there's almost a mindset, and I don't know if it's the brass ordering the rank and file to adhere to this, that if there are peaceful counter demonstrators, if there are members of the independent press who might be asking impolite questions, toss them in the paddy wagon because they might further incite the mob. It reminds me of the dark old days of when a woman was sexually assaulted, and on the stand she'd be asked, how much leg were you showing that day? How much cleavage were you showing that day? This is this is unbelievable, Sue-Ann. If these people who are already hotheads get further enraged, that's their problem, not those who I would say are on the right side of history.
Well, it all goes back, Dave, to them not enforcing consequences. There's a wonderful lawyer, Mark Sandler, who started this organization. I heard him speak last year, and he issues a newsletter. I urge your listeners to check it out. He's talked about all the ways that the police can arrest these Hamasniks and use the laws that are in place. There are laws about blocking the roadway, causing a disturbance, masking. So many of them mask. Nobody is enforcing that law. And if there were some consequences, so they scream a little bit. So the Muslim organizations, cry Islamophobia. I don't give a crap at this point. I really don't. There has to be some consequences for their behavior.
100%. And I got to tell you, Sue-Ann, law enforcement and the politicians in this city are now lying. Law enforcement last month lied about an ambulance being blocked by these pro-Hamas people. They lied about the timeline. They said that the light bar on the ambulance wasn't on. We have video evidence that shows it was indeed on. And the city, when it comes to the latest infringement, which is groups of these people blocking important thoroughfares to pray, they say they have a constitutional right to pray.
They do not have a right. I get so incensed when I hear this. They're obstructing the roadway.
Yep.
And if they just bring out the water cannons. I'm not Islamophobic in the slightest, but bring out the water cannons. They've gotten away with enough. They're doing it in some European countries, but all you have to do is look at what happened in Paris the other night.
Yep.
They have been allowed to run unchecked. Paris was burning. It's so sad to see what happens. These are not peaceful people. These are not peaceful protesters. They want to make a mess of our society. And like you said, it's not all Muslims, but I often wonder where the peaceful Muslims are. Why are they not speaking up?
I agree. I would like to see that more. And by the way, to finish my point, Sue-Ann, yes, you do have a constitutional right to pray, but you do not have a constitutional right to block a street to pray. And often there is a mosque within walking distance. So I think this is a demonstration of Islamist exceptionalism. This is a middle finger to the West. And because they get away with everything, well, of course they're going to further push the envelope, don't you think?
Yeah, it's like a spoiled child who throws a temper tantrum. And mommy says, oh, you're okay. Go to a timeout room. But 5 minutes later, she comes with an ice cream or a little toy, and it's the same thing. There are no consequences. And these people have pushed the envelope and pushed the envelope. And I really, really do. And I'm not trying to sound alarmist, but I really do fear that someone's going to get hurt.
Well, what you said isn't conjecture in terms of bringing treats. We've seen the Toronto police bring these cats coffee and Timbits on cold days. I guess you can get a little chilly chanting genocide in the middle of January. But, Sue-Ann, we should leave it with this because you did mention your lovely wife, Denise, and you are openly lesbian. And this is the beginning of, is it Pride Month or Pride Season? I'm losing track.
You know what? It went from Pride Day to Pride Weekend to Pride Month to Pride Season. And I don't know when that season ends. I have no idea.
This is what I'm leading up to, Sue-Ann. I see groups that identify with their signage. They're called, for example, Queers for Palestine. And, it's kind of like chickens for Colonel Saunders in my book. We know full well that if you were openly queer in Gaza, you'd only have to buy a one-way plane ticket. That's right. You're making the throat slash, but I believe the preferred method is to be tossed from a rooftop. Sue-Ann, please, especially given your sexual orientation, please educate me how people with that kind of sexual orientation or gender identification identify with people who want them dead.
Oh, I think they're crazy in the head, frankly, most of them. And I also think that they've subscribed to this DEI oppressor-oppressed mentality where we're the oppressors, being Jews, and they feel that the Muslims or the Palestinians are oppressed, but they hate us. There was a clip of a man who was gay confronting a Muslim woman right here in Toronto, and she said, "Go away, we hate you, and he's got like the rainbow flag hanging over, and I'm thinking, buddy, wake up to what's going on. They don't, really dislike you. But, you know, it's also called suicide empathy, if you've heard that term. They just feel sorry for these people and they want to be part of something. They also want to, like most of these people who are at Casa Loma, would venture to say are disenfranchised, dregs of society. You know, I saw them in their masks and they looked like they needed a shower. They badly needed a shower. And, you know, and a lot of them were queers for Palestine.
Unbelievable. Well, you know, I'm very grateful that neither you or your wife experienced physical harm. We know that Kareem Assad's videographer, Lee, he actually had his pants pulled down, which to me is borderline sexual assault. I mean, we can laugh about it, but I would hate to have that happen to me.
Mr. McDuff, I have a girl on video who pulled my pants down.
All right. Sue-Ann, it's been tolerated for 19 months, going on 20 months. Where does it go from here? Does it take an actual, God forbid, serious injury or even death of a Jew? Or even that isn't enough to move the needle? Last word goes to you, my friend.
I think it does, but I think what it takes is we Jews and the Jewish community speaking out, marching, protesting. I've determined that this summer I am going to go to whatever meeting I can and speak up and look at these politicians in the face, look at the police board in the face and say, you know, you have let our community down. How dare you? My wife thinks they should be sued. There should be a class action suit, and that some lawyer should come forward and sue Olivia Chow, sue the police services board for allowing this to happen.
You know, I never thought about that, Sue-Ann. What an incredible concept. And really, I think you have basis for, I don't know, dereliction of duty, because this dog don't hunt, as they say in Alabama. Well, Sue-Ann, you stay safe out there. Sometimes I don't recognize the streets of my beloved birthplace. And I guess one last thing, I want to get your take on this, Sue-Ann. Is this an indictment of the failure of official state multiculturalism? And by that, I mean, when we go back to 1971, when Pierre Elliott Trudeau officially enshrined multiculturalism, there was an unspoken deal, wasn't there? Which was this: come to Canada, pursue the Canadian promise, take advantage of all our social welfare programs. In return, all we ask is this: behave, obey the law, do not import your age-old hatreds to our dominion. But as we've seen for the last 19 months plus, that ain't the case in reality, is it?
Well, I think it speaks to the rapid immigration, the attempts by the Trudeau government and now Mark Carney to bring in all these immigrants not properly vetted. I mean, Mark Miller should be, you know, raked over the coals for bringing in all these Gazans with all their, you know, hates towards Jews. And I don't know what they're thinking. Maybe they're looking for new voters. I don't know, but they're not properly vetted. And they spew their hate on the streets. They don't respect Canadian laws and customs. I've interviewed in my time when I was at the Sun, mostly people who respected the immigration system and came in legally, jumped through all the hoops, are respectful people of society, earning a good living, and I still remember doing that. And these are not the kind of people that Canada should be welcoming.
100%. And again, it's the political class. I remember Walk with Israel. That was an event for a who's who of the political elite to be seen at. Yeah. But this year, no Mayor Chow, no Premier Ford, no Prime Minister Carney. So we kind of get the idea of where they stand. Sue-Ann, a pleasure as always. Thank you so much. And I guess
my Jewish star.
Yes.
New Jewish star.
You know, I only say this half jokingly. You might not want to walk in certain areas of the GTA with that on display, sadly.
I don't care. I'm proud of who I am, and I'm not going to stop wearing it.
There you go. That's the spirit. Sue-Ann Levy of Juno News. Thank you so much once again.
You're welcome.
Hey, what do you think about Alberta independence? What do you think about Alberta trying to get a better deal within Canada? Do you think Alberta should have the right to vote in a referendum to separate, the same way Quebec did? There's a lot of things to talk about. Can Canada be fixed, or has the West tried that, done that, been there, and it's just not working? Well, we're going to talk about all these things in an amazing day-long conference in Red Deer, the heart of Alberta, on Saturday, June 14th. Go to donegetingscrewed.com to get your tickets now. It's going to be a full day. We'll start with a continental breakfast. We'll have panel discussions. We'll have keynote speakers. We'll even have a debate. I think that's going to be the highlight of it. David Legg, former advisor to the Alberta government, is going to make the case for Canada. Keith Wilson, lawyer, freedom activist, he was with the Freedom Convoy. He'll be making the case for independence. We'll have other people in the debates, a media panel, and people of different points of view, including different political parties. There's going to be a bit of a trade show there too. So we'll serve you 2 meals, but more than that, we'll serve you ideas you just can't get anywhere else. But it's coming up quick, and I promise you this event will sell out. There's only room for 1,000 people. And I know that there have been 1,000-person meetings about this subject all over the province. In fact, we had an event in Calgary that sold out in 2 days when we had only 350 seats. So don't be disappointed. Go to donegetingscrewed.com and get your tickets now. I'll be there. Sheila Gunn-Reid will be there. So many interesting people. Our friends in other media companies like Western Standard, Juno News, and Counter Signal. It's going to be a great day. That's Saturday, June 14th in Red Deer, Alberta, all day long. Go to donegetingscrewed.com to get your ticket now. Don't wait. I don't want you to be locked out. It's going to be full. See you there. That's donegetingscrewed.com.